Well, I think there are no perfect leaders, but I think a leader that I admire and I particularly, think is a good role model because he's from a different culture than mine, is Lee Kuan Yew, the longtime president of, or prime minister rather, of Singapore. And the two values that I admire the most in him are a big, strong sense of pragmatism. So he was a political leader who did not put any prejudged or pre-established idea of how to achieve the ends he was pursuing for his people before that goal itself. So basically he was able, and that's the second value, it's humility to some extent, intellectual humility. So the ability to change course if you need to many times, and especially when you're successful, that's hard. And the third, which is what you ask in terms of the teaching values, he created in Singapore a generation, or several generations actually, of political leaders who are mindful, pragmatic, honest, and that's something that is really, really hard to do, and it's rare to see.
One of my favorite leaders is actually Sarah Matthew, who's the CEO of Dun & Bradstreet, and she's an incredible intellect, but also she's got a really deep willingness to expose herself and to learn, as a leader. And maybe it was her upbringing, maybe it was being kind of co-CEO for a while and watching how to do it. I don't know, but she really has the ability to learn and to take feedback and to focus on what's really important in leadership.
I think about my late father-in-law, Charles Beard, when you asked the question of a leader who has the right values. He built Poland chainsaws. He was a tremendously successful businessman, but he also got a PhD in economics from Columbia University and taught ethics at Centenary College in Shreveport, Louisiana. And he brought the ethics that he taught to the business that he created. He became a very wealthy person, but the depth of his richness was creating a company that people loved to work at, that they felt treated them fair, that gave them a place where their lives, not just Charles Beard's life, their lives could be fulfilled. He used to tell me, because we both taught business ethics, that there was only one subject for business ethics, and that was distributive justice. And he lived his life trying to create wealth and fairly distribute it. He was a Republican. I'm a Democrat, but we loved each other.
When I think of a leader who I admire, who I believe has the right values, that would be something like President Clinton, President Obama, because I love the fact that they embrace people. They're not shy to take other points of view. They bring it all in and somehow motivate people to be engaged, to be thoughtful. And that's what I'm looking for in leaders, somebody who can get others to be inspired and to get engaged with whatever it is that they're doing, be it politics, business, whatever. So a leader who is open-minded and knows how to deal well with people.
When I think about a leader who has the right values, a new leader who I've just met over the last year and a half came to mind. His name is Greg Van Kirk. He's launched something called Community Enterprise Solutions around something called the micro-consignment model. So think microfinance, you give people small loans, but often when you do that, you're giving loans to people who may not know how to spend that money, may not have the business training to know how to invest it, and you're assuming they have a product or good that they could actually go out and buy and then resell. Micro-consignment actually is a much more collaborative and sharing model where you actually consign the goods, so you're giving them the goods to sell. What's brilliant about what Greg does is not just this model, but the way that he engages with the people throughout the model. It's all about changing the lives of women entrepreneurs in Guatemala, Ecuador, and El Salvador, but not thinking he can do it by himself, realizing that he needs a rich team of people, from the people that support him financially to the college students that actually bring their business skills into the field. And so when I think about Greg's leadership skills, he has this incredible ability to do what I call empathic zooming in and zooming out. And so by empathic zooming in, I mean really getting close to whoever it is he's working with. So if he's working with college students, he spends time with them. If he's in the villages, he spends time with them. And that spending time with them helps him not just understand or build relationships, but it actually helps him think about what products we should sell in the field, or what products we need to best help the students figure out how to sell better, for example, or how they train the women entrepreneurs. And so the zooming in helps build the relationships, gets close understanding. But social entrepreneurship, or for any leader, it's really not just about individual change, but it's about large-scale change. And so he's able to zoom out and really see what are the systems, say in a place like Guatemala, that are at the cause of what the current situation is and why people can't have a better livelihood. And so ultimately what Greg does is really begins with this empathy that lets him get close to the people, build trust, and then he zooms back out and then tries to see what are the scalable solutions. And he comes up with objective goals, measures them, and I think that's what makes him a great leader.
Well, I had a terrific experience under General David Petraeus for 2 years when he was the division commander of the 101st Airborne Division at the beginning of the war in Iraq. I was one of his brigade commanders, and he set an example of personal courage by going all over the battlefield wherever we were, and we were scattered all over northern Iraq. He personally went out to see the environment in which the soldiers were living and operating. He also set a personal example of innovation, which made it clear what he expected of all of us. Take risks, use your initiative, and do things differently in order to connect with the Iraqi population and help get Iraqi leadership back in place, civil leadership, to understand the tribal nature of the Sunni part of northern Iraq, for example. So that aspect of how we were supposed to operate, which reflect the effectiveness of that was reflected in the success that the 101st Airborne Division had in northern Iraq. And it was a personal example of General Petraeus of courage, innovation, and then also he's such a great communicator. He could articulate to us at every level that's what he expected of us, and and he was relentless as well. And lots of leaders are relentless and put high demands on you, but he matched his relentlessness with personal example, doing what he expected us to do, and then finding resources. I've never seen anybody that could come up with resources to help you accomplish what it was you were trying to do the way that he did.
I think a lot about what leaders I admire, what leaders had the kind of values that I'd want to teach to my students. And I actually, the first that comes to mind is John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the President of the United States between 1961 and 1963. And actually he was the founder, one of the founders of the business school that I currently teach at. And he may not have been a perfect man in terms of having some flawed personal values of his own. However, in terms of his orientation towards making society a better place, I think he was fixed in the right direction. And I think it's summed up in the quotes that he's famous for. For example, when he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." And in addition, he has a wonderful quote that we give all of our business schools students, in which he says, "A great society is one in which men and women of business think greatly about their responsibilities and the consequences of their action." And for that reason, I admire him very much.
Well, in thinking about that question, I came in my thoughts to the person who really, I think, had the biggest impact on me and my work, a man called the Reverend Paul Regan, who founded and ran an organization called the Newham Renewal Project in an inner city area of East London, always in response to the new needs as they arose. He started the project when a large number of Asian people were evicted from Uganda by Idi Amin, and he opened the doors of his church and his home and persuaded a number of other people across many different faiths and religions to do similar things, and made a possible landing place for these people. And he didn't rest there. They quickly moved on when the challenges changed. New waves of immigration from Sri Lanka, for example. They responded in a different way to meet those needs. And in a very forward-looking and complex response, he developed the organization that first employed me, called the Newham Conflict and Change Project, which sought to address areas of conflict, particularly neighborhood conflict and racial conflict within that area, and not to try to simply resolve it and make it go away, but to engage the people involved there in trying to understand the more complex forces that were in a sense creating conflict amongst them, when maybe the fight was better directed elsewhere at social injustice. Paul Regan is now in his 70s. He retired a year or two ago, and most recently he's championed what's been a hugely successful national campaign in the UK called the Living Wage Campaign. And this has really spoken up for low-paid workers and given them a voice, particularly in the banks in the City of London, who had outsourced their cleaning contracts to companies which in turn hired mainly illegal immigrants, employed them at very low wages with very little protection. And Paul managed to pull together a large number of people across a range of different constituencies to mount a fantastically effective campaign. He's absolutely tireless and deeply principled, and a man I shall always be grateful to.